welcome back to our also unnamed podcast, because we're doing 2 in a row. We didn't figure out the name like irresponsible people.
Yep.
But we will, and they will be titled the name by the time you're listening to it. Today, we have a really interesting topic. Kyle, what if I told you you could have crispy babies?
I would say that's probably illegal, and I would call the cops.
It is actually illegal right now.
That's
so
true.
Today we're talking about genetically modified human beings. GMH.
GMHs? They are technically GMOs, right? They are genetically modified organisms.
Yeah, but that's like fruit. So
But it's the same thing. It applies.
it's definitely, I mean, yeah, we're only like, what are we, like 58% banana? That's the correct way to phrase that statistic or something.
This fact gets like slightly more off every time you say it, I think.
Yeah. No, we are bananas.
We are bananas.
We are
Humans and
bananas.
bananas are actually basically the same thing.
I mean, isn't that the actual fact,
Humans
though?
humans evolved from bananas.
Isn't the fact stupid?
known.
Like we have more DNA matched up with a banana than a shark?
I don't think that's it at all.
No, it's definitely bananas and sharks. There's no other options.
I believe it is just that there is a surprisingly high amount of DNA shared between humans and bananas.
Yes.
But yeah,
I've always thought.
That's just because Earth life came from a singular point, so everything kind of shares a certain amount of DNA.
But why bananas? Anyway, that's not the point. The
Because
point
bananas
is
are funny. It's the funniest fruit name.
the point is crispy babies. So the only reason I say crispy babies, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, something that exists is called the CRISPR, or at least it does exist.
It's an
'cause we've
acronym.
used
It's CRISPR.
Yeah, and it's
I don't remember what the acronym actually stands for.
You put the DNA in like a sheet of paper in a printer, and it pops out a baby with all the DNA that you said you wanted. And that's how it works.
CRISPR is a method of modifying genes at a cellular level.
That's what I said. But that's fine. Explain it the way that you process
It's a tool
best.
that they're currently trying to develop to enable genetic modification, and it seems promising as far as I haven't heard any updates saying that they were wrong and it failed or anything.
It at least successfully created babies.
Oh, they used it. People have used it. I forgot.
Well, one guy used it and it was not allowed.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's actually sorry. It works well enough that there are laws saying you can't do it.
Right.
But somebody did it anyway.
Actually, there weren't really laws. That's kind of the big thing that happened, is because it hadn't really made it out into the world of like there were going to need to be laws soon, and this guy just happened to function in that very small time period of not quite laws, but there are going to be laws and everybody's talking about it, and he made triplets, right, or something, or
He
twins.
genetically modified a pair of twins, I think.
I recently found out
no
that he
one
got
knows.
3 years in prison.
Oh, I thought he just disappeared.
You know what? I saw it as a passing article, and I didn't even bother clicking on it, and that is my mistake. But that's what I read somewhere, literally only a headline with no other information.
Okay.
That perhaps...
We'll have to check on that, because the last update I heard was that he actually literally just vanished, and I assumed that just like the Chinese government just,
CRISPR ate him.
took him or something.
That's
He's
possible.
Chinese, right?
I think he was Chinese, yeah.
But yeah, there's a pair of twins out there who have been genetically modified, but they're infants, and so there's no like evidence of what happened yet. No one knows what the consequences will be just yet.
And that's not really what we're going to talk about. But the CRISPR exists, and it is something to look up if you haven't.
There are plenty of YouTube videos that break it down.
There's that Haagen-Dazs, the YouTube channel. They talk about science. No, it's the
Kurzgesagt or something like that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I said.
Yep.
But the concept today, the question I ask you, Kyle, is: would you genetically modify your babies?
I can't say it doesn't make sense to like genetically modify diseases out of people.
Sure.
Like it makes perfect sense to like, hey, there's that little Alzheimer's gene. Let's just take that right out there, and there's some proclivity for cancer over there. We'll remove that.
Here's the problem, though. We can't actually identify those genes. So here's what you can do. What color hair do you want?
Right. See, then it starts getting a little bit different. Like, I don't know where the line is. I think this is the big debate. We haven't really, like, officially hit this debate yet, because, again, it's not really happening in practical real life.
Right.
But it is definitely going to be the debate. Mm-hmm. And it is going to be a doozy when it happens.
Well, what's going to be fun is a bunch of old white guys are going to get to decide, and they obviously know everything, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of resistance to it up front.
Yeah.
I immediately inherently have resistance to it.
Sure.
I'm not convinced that I'm right.
Yeah.
It's definitely like I have a visceral reaction to like picking out does it's the term usually thrown around is designer babies, right?
Yeah,
it's people
yeah.
get to it's the idea that eventually this technology will inevitably hit a point where you can literally just like Sims character designer what your baby is going to look like.
Yeah.
And they'll probably even know what he's going to look like as an adult at that point too, right? Like they'll be able to just this is what I want the new person to look like. And I don't know if that's necessarily bad, because there's definitely going to be...
There's ways to think of how it would be extremely bad, and then there's ways to think of how it would not really be that bad.
Well, let's try to stick on the surface level first, because I think I can already see a lot of interesting holes I want to dive into along this field we're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like just from a surface level, if people didn't have ulterior motives or were terrible to each other,
sure.
It's a little bit weird. Because like just the idea of like, well, there's a little bit of like the lineage idea of it's like, well, now you're making kids that don't really look like you, but it's really easy to be like, well, that doesn't matter because like adoption is a thing too,
sure,
and that's still fine.
Yeah.
And then there's things like, well, what if the kid doesn't like the choices you made? But then
kids will never like any choices you made. Like I didn't ask to be born when I was the age of 12 to 16, and that was a big deal.
Well, and also like the kid, I mean, you can not like the hand that nature dealt you either, right? It's like you don't really have a say in it one way or the other. It's just this version lets you blame a person instead of random chance. Way more mom's
fault than ever before.
Right.
Wow.
So it's honestly, it's like it's danger on you to do that to your kid.
Sure.
But probably it's still going to come out an objective net positive when you think about it, because people aren't going to choose unlikable traits. It may not be your preference, but it's probably not going to be negative, right? No one's going to choose things that make you ugly, like by a general perspective. No one's going to choose things that make you sick. No one's going to choose things that make you
I've seen this episode of Fairly Odd Parents. We all turn into identical gray blobs.
The gray blob episode.
Yeah. Well, no,
that's one of the rabbit holes.
Okay, but it's one of the first things I immediately...
The biggest rabbit hole is Nazis, and we'll get to that in a minute.
No, it's different, actually. I went kind of a more mundane, but still serious route, which is, when you specifically bring that up, I think of, we have a quote-unquote understanding of attractiveness that exists.
Right.
And so people always want their kids to be cute. I mean, people think all of their ugly babies are cute.
Right.
But they definitely would try harder to make sure they were adorable. And at some point... When we actually, and we've seen this before, when people start to get closer to the epitome of what that society deems as attractive, they all start to look the same. Mm-hmm. You notice that despite having slightly different eye shapes, eye colors and hair colors, that all the noses are small in relation to their other features, and that the lips are big, and that the eyes are wide and bright, and that their ears are small. So while Jennifer Aniston and Angelina Jolie don't look like the same person, they all share very similar features, which is the ratio of features that exist. And so as we get closer to that, we're all just going to start looking a lot more like each other.
It gets less, I mean, this is subjective, but it gets less, you get less interesting and less memorable the closer you get to like physical perfection.
I don't even think
right?
that's
like,
subjective. But yeah, and honestly, there are a lot of results that could come out of everyone looking very similar to each other, but just on like a not entirely depressing and Nazi-related tract, that's an option, is that everyone starts to be beautiful, and it goes back to like this yin-yang idea that exists throughout.
Once everyone's special, no one will be.
Wow, is that a SpongeBob quote?
No, that is a Syndrome quote from The Incredibles.
I was so close. It could have been a SpongeBob quote.
It could be, yeah.
But no, like, yeah, it is basically that idea of what I was saying is like yin and yang. What is pretty if there is not ugly to counter? Right. What the standards start to get skewed and become weird.
Even without making it like
then it's like, who's the prettiest of the pretty? Actually, there is a book on this. It's called The Pretties, and it's an entire society where they like kidnap. I read this forever ago, so I might be wrong, but they kidnap young girls, or like you have to go through a process where they turn you into a pretty person, and if you don't make it into the pretty part of society, you're like an outcast outlander amongst the wall, and like you have to sneak in and like corrupt society from the inside because it's all full of pretty people, and and like it's this weird aeon flux bubble that you have to penetrate. I don't really remember the story. I didn't finish it because it was kind of a garbage concept.
Well, so even if you remove the sort of like subjective quality scale, it's even just like you remove differences, right? It's just like there's variation and you just neutralize it out to everybody looking the same, which is actually what the Fairly Odd Parents episode was about, which was the idea was if everybody looks the same, then there will be no prejudice and no one will have any problems with each other.
Right. But that didn't happen.
But yeah,
they fought over who was the grayest blob.
Right, exactly.
Despite them all being exactly identical gray blobs, because it's a personality trait to be a piece of garbage.
Some biting commentary from Fairly Odd Parents.
Yo, it stuck with me. Here I am today, because everyone was like, "Oh, I'm the kid with the gray hat now," and then that became like a whole thing. Because people will always. It's weird that
Are we
concept.
all really that different?
It's weird that the concept was that when everyone becomes the same, they will fight to be different, but we're all in the fight to be the same right now.
Yeah.
Boom.
Well, we're all in the fight to be
home and tell your
better.
parents.
Everyone wants to be superior is kind of the problem, right?
This is probably the most mundane of tracks to have gone on with this concept.
It was concept. On Nickelodeon, so they couldn't have gone too deep.
No, I just mean us. We went in a quite a mundane.
No, I did this
aspect.
on purpose because we're gonna fall off the edge of the cliff next.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. No, it can only escalate.
Yeah.
Where would you like to escalate this topic?
Eugenics, Nazis. So the whole thing with the Nazis.
That's where you wanted to go. Okay.
This is the version of it that has been attempted in history so far. The Nazis' goal was to create the master race. That's what they wanted to do.
Right.
They wanted to create the Ubermensch, the Superman. That was their whole thing. There was they wanted tall, chisel-jawed, blonde, blue-eyed people. They were superior.
I love my women with chisel jaws.
They were the ones, basically just Norwegians, I think, is what they wanted to create.
You know what? That is the image that you and I picture, but I don't honestly know what they were going for. They didn't like Jewish people, and they sought and they went after people.
Well, it was the opposite.
Who looked like they could have been Jewish.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, I don't like. I'm always a little bit confused at Hitler. Surprise, surprise. But
I'm not sure I click with that Hitler guy.
Yeah, right. But what was the specific goal? I've heard his speeches, but obviously they're in a language I don't speak.
Well, the weird thing.
So the concept, like, no one actually dives deep into this concept because. What the hell was he doing actually? What did he really just want an actual Aryan race of gorgeous like Norwegian men?
So I'm not super
That's a little
well-versed
gay.
in,
I mean, it's okay, but has anyone ever told Hitler that?
No, the gays weren't allowed either.
Right, no, right. Sorry, I apologize.
No, none of these ideal people were gay.
It's ironic that Hitler, though, looks and appears to be gay and Jewish. I just think that's funny. He's over here out like I think
that makes perfect sense.
I just think it's kind of ironic that he had dark hair and dark eyes and a dark mustache and is probably gay now that we've just assessed that. And that's fine that he would be both of those. The parts about Hitler that are bad are neither of those parts. It's all the other parts.
I actually don't know how much of it is attributable to Hitler. I'm not familiar enough with the Nazis' like power distribution.
What were they doing?
To know if that was like his idea or if he was leading it and other high-ranking officials were using it to support their own causes, that kind of thing. Like, I don't know how much Hitler himself was necessarily into the genetic alteration portion, or if he just like gave the opportunities to all the Nazi scientists in their round glasses. But it was a big thing among, and it wasn't even just that, because they also had the Hitler Youth Project, which is what that new movie is about, the Taika Waititi's movie.
Right. What is that?
It was literally they were so crazy in so many different ways that would have been fascinating to watch if they weren't also destroying the world. But their idea was, Hitler's great, but one day he will die. We need more Hitlers. So what we will do is we will find kids who are as close to Hitler as a kid as possible already. We will take all of them. We will build a compound, and we will insert each of them into their own little bubble universe and try to raise them the exact same way that Hitler was raised so that they turn into more Hitlers.
They
literally tried to recreate their his family and his house.
Wow, it's really weird that we think of such stupid ideas but never think past them. Like that idea we laugh at today as like that's a hilariously stupid thing because it's not possible. But there was a time and place within the world that people thought that was gonna work. And that's just, I don't know why. That's a passing thought. But okay, so on that concept of how genetically modified humans could go that direction, we'd need a World War III or IV that involved someone who really wanted to do that. So how does that play out now? What are the dangers of people who are like that aren't running the world?
It's the opposite. Well, they vote for the people who are running the world, and then it turns into a whole movement. That's how it goes. It's the
oh my god, then it is the
opposites.
uglies versus the pretties.
Yeah,
we take up our pitchforks.
It's the opposite of the Fairly Odd Parents episode. It's
right.
not. It's not somebody going, everybody should look the same so that there's no prejudice. It's people going, this is
the way to look,
the correct way, and we need to make that more of those people and get rid of the ones that aren't. It's just racism.
This would be so much more interesting in a world where the races were equal, though. Like, considering that there's so much non-equality between races still.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I meant
clarify, please.
Yeah.
I know there's nothing. I know you just slipped, but for the sake of people listening.
Right. Sorry. What I meant to say was when other people considered, when it was just understood by all
races
people.
Races are equal socially.
Yeah, I mean, in every form, essentially. I don't remember where I was going because now I have to recheck how racist my statement was, which was inherently very racist. But the point I was trying to make was, in a society where racism doesn't exist because we all understand that all races are equal, this would be a much more fun conversation.
Yes.
Because then we would have theories what would happen? Because if all the people at the top were a series of different races and the option and CRISPR got involved, then it's who's gonna you have all kinds of people fighting about what the perfect human is like, but at this point, it's just a bunch of angry white people that are we're better.
Real fast, I would like to acknowledge, bear in mind, and apologize for anything that might result to any of our listeners from the fact that you are currently listening to a podcast with two white people talking about genetic modification.
That's true.
And,
there is inherent bias in our way of thinking, purely because we're white people. I mean, I just think that's true because there's no way to avoid the social impact of being a white person or not being a white person. Now, I don't agree that those should exist, but there just is. And so I think that so now we have to think about this kind of stuff in our life. And so now it's a very dangerous option because there's all the people at the top are rich, prejudiced white people, and they would just make more of them, and they would tell them to. But that's already what's happening without genetic modification.
That's true. Actually, yeah, so, that already happens just through just social oppression and stuff. But that's
just the United States. I mean, it's
not
worldwide.
Just the United States.
I'm sorry. What we're talking about is a systematic understanding of
we are the most familiar with the United States as
right.
Problems.
I guess that's true. Yeah. But I mean, other places in the world don't have white people at the top.
Not all of them, no. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the ones that we are the most familiar with, the ones that do.
Right.
I guess to attempt to talk about something that isn't white people, despite again being a very, very white man. Asia, from what I hear, has a lot of inherent racism between the countries within.
Yeah, that's
Asia,
true. I've heard that as well.
Within the continent,
yeah.
There's a lot of prejudices between each country, especially among older people. I've heard Asian people my age talk about how their parents would be appalled finding out that there were, mixes of DNA from other countries from the past, or even that they were dating people from a different bloodline now.
Yeah.
There was somebody in our Discord who was talking about how some people in his family had a prejudiced perspective on intermarrying because of the belief that you were connected through your ancestors through your bloodline, and so mixing the bloodline makes it more difficult to have that connection.
I've heard of this, yeah.
So yeah, no, there are definitely it's not necessarily just that it's gonna be people making the Nazi ideal of blonde hair, blue-eyed people,
right?
But I think the main problem is just that anybody who gets into power and has a perspective of this is the way this should go can ultimately influence that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. So I'm gonna tangent us away from risque race topics now that I've completely stuck my foot in my mouth multiple times.
That's probably smart. Let's explore some other corners
and move on to another concept that I vaguely have discussed in the past, which is what happens when we actually create twins of people. Like, let's say you die.
Oh, I just remembered a topic I want to get to. Keep going. This is the correct path.
Let's say you die. Okay. Right? And so I get to have my own GMO baby. And I'm like, I wanted to look just as much as like Kyle as possible. This would not happen. But someone else might do something similar.
Just like cloning, basically, right?
Yeah.
You just make an exact copy of somebody.
Actually,
that's easier currently than genetic modification. Like, we actually...
I mean, I'd have to genetically modify a child to look like you, like to have your face or whatever. This is a weird thing because
it's actually easier because my DNA exists. You can just take it and just be like this, make this again.
Right.
And it's actually easier to do that.
Well, can you actually do that? Can I just copy your
pretty
DNA?
Close to, I mean, people have cloned. It's illegal to clone humans, so people don't do it. But we technically
But have we ever?
I don't know.
We have. We definitely have. I'd love to see that. But we know that that's happened.
Not officially.
See, this always freaks me out because I immediately think of Full Metal Alchemist, where like they try to bring back their mother, and she's just like this weird...
There's actually an entire movie about this.
What's it called?
It has Matt Smith in it.
Really?
I don't remember what it's called. I can't remember the other actress either, but she's also famous. But it is...
There's a lot of movies
Her
about
husband dies, so she has him cloned and impregnates herself with the cloned fetus of her husband and gives birth to him as a child and then raises... her husband clone.
This is literally exactly the situation I was talking about, but you put it in details that I was unwilling to do. It's horrifying, and I wish I had not used myself as the previous example, so let's just say someone.
Sure.
So, okay, point is, ignoring the context of the situation, I clone you.
Yeah.
You're cloned,
right.
And someone raises you. It doesn't matter. Those details I don't want to discuss. But essentially, you exist, or you die. And I bottle your DNA like you do, and then I make you again, and now you exist. What implications come from that? What are there downsides?
Yeah, well, so I mean, it depends on what I mean. Yes, and there's different ones depending on which angle you look at it from. So, like, I don't know why I always go straight to an organizational. I'm not like a government sympathizer specifically, but I have. I don't know. I always just go to this. It'd be really hard to keep track of someone's identity if it was identical to somebody else's.
I know why you immediately jump to those things.
Why?
You are very far from a government sympathizer or whatever.
No.
It's because your brain organizes.
Yeah.
This is what you
probably.
do. You in high volume deal with video files, picture files, uploads. Like, you deal in mass amounts of things. So the first thing, and you deal with computers a lot. So the first thing you think of is like, damn, keeping track of this would be hard.
Well, if you had another person that looked like a person that lived once and died, now you have fingerprints that technically aren't theirs. You have passport photos that technically aren't theirs.
Oh my God, the crime,
the whole crime. There's a bunch of stuff that is like it wasn't them, but they are in every way identical, so it's impossible to tell.
Wow. I wouldn't even have thought of that, but yeah, that's a good point.
And then I mean, from the other end, there's also a lot of emotional.
But that would only matter if you were still alive, right?
No.
Why?
I mean, not really.
You can't get framed because you're not alive.
I mean, yes, it would definitely make it easy. It would reduce the confusion to like, wait, this guy's dead. I have to check and see what the hell happened, I guess. But
you'd have to do that with anyone.
You can also blow this up on a larger scale, which leads me to the point I want to talk about, which is intellectual property in regards to your own face.
Oh, right. You do like this topic. This is a tricky one.
It is. So if there wasn't anything in place, what's stopping someone from going, I want my son to look like Tom Cruise? I'm going to design him to look exactly like Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And then if that happens, can they be sued for recreating somebody else's likeness?
I mean, but people...
The answer is yes, because you can sue anybody for anything, and lawyers will show up that specialize in this.
But people look like people all the time. Actually,
you're right, they do.
I just watched a video on... I mean, it was a dumb video. It was like the top 10 TikTokers that look like other celebrities. But they legit... There was one chick that basically had Ariana Grande's face. Now, she didn't have her fingerprints, but you would not be able to tell the difference. If that girl decided to dress up as Ariana Grande and go commit a crime on film, you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference.
Right.
So, like... But can she sue her for looking like her?
There is an existing aspect of copyright law already that addresses this, which is
the Fortnite dance.
Well, it's intent. It's did you do it on purpose, right? It's did this actually, and it doesn't always like it's not always a cop out.
Did your face look like mine on purpose?
Well, that's the thing. It's like if you were just born with that face, then that's also your face. We can't deny you that. But if you intentionally copied this person's face, and you can show and prove that, like, no, there was intent to imitate this person's identity, then that's a different thing.
Well, then only the father is at risk and not the son who has Tom Cruise's face.
No, yeah, the people getting sued are definitely the parents.
Well, okay, but here, so that gets trickier because for men, maybe. But the girl that looks like Ariana Grande looks like Ariana Grande with makeup. And Ariana Grande looks like Ariana Grande because of the makeup, right? It's a specific style. And they just happen to have similar features. So it's like, when they're both wearing makeup, they look like each other. And she intentionally tries to look like her. And so if she went out and committed a crime or something looking like her, then there is intention, but also...
But that's a different thing. That's somebody dressing... That is identity theft, essentially, right? You can...
Okay.
I mean, that exists now, too.
Okay, it's a little bit different because you're not them.
You can do makeup to make somebody make a man look like another man, too. Like, there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually... I feel like it's definitely a different thing
topic.
than, like... Yeah, it's a different topic,
I see what you're saying.
Than just actually, like... trying to, especially if you have access to it, that's kind of a big thing too, right? Because there's also the slight difference of, like, I'm going to try and just visually by eye recreate this person.
Yeah.
Or is there going to be, like, what about like DNA piracy, right? What if somebody breaks into a database that has people's DNA in it on one of these companies,
and then they just recreate clones of everyone.
You can download it on Pirate Bay, and then, install it.
You just make a Tom Cruise.
And there's another thing too, which is...
Wait, but if you CRISPR a Tom Cruise, do they actually have his DNA? Or do you just make him look like him?
Depends. If you had access to it originally, then you could recreate an exact copy. If you had the information stored somewhere, then you could be like, make this exactly. But if you didn't have that information, you would just be looking at it by eye. Does that information
exist? Do we have Tom Cruise DNA to make that happen?
At the moment, no. But if you're living in a world where everybody is being genetically modified, then when they're being created or born, they probably have that in a database somewhere. So presumably that could be hacked, and that information could be redistributed. So people could just get the information of everybody's genome if they wanted, just like credit card numbers, right? You could just mass download genome sequences. So you could just accidentally run into someone that looks like you because they were sold a bootleg copy of your DNA.
Wow, in a world, it's no longer like, wow, you kind of look like Tom Cruise. It's more like, wow, you look like the back alley market version of Tom Cruise.
Well, no, that's the one that somebody just tries to design by eye, right? That's just you on the sim character creator going, I'm going to try to make this look as close as possible.
My sims are great. But you're right. No, that's true. No, I think that's valid.
Another thing I'm not taking into account, though, is aging. Because if you made somebody look like somebody
at one point,
then by the time they look like that person will be old. So then,
do they age the same?
Then is it the same thing? Then is it as bad? Because now you don't look like that anymore.
Right? Can you sue somebody for looking like how you used to?
Yeah.
So is the dad still under fire? Like, he made Tom Cruise. He made his baby look like what Tom Cruise will eventually look like, and his kid grows up. Now he looks like 24-year-old Tom Cruise. But now Tom Cruise is 60.
He's a bad example because he mostly stayed the same. But
but the concept's there. But you're totally right.
Yeah.
Which is like, he's looking at him and he's like, I'm going to sue that guy for looking like how I used to.
Right, yeah.
See, it doesn't seem like it holds up nearly as much.
Yeah.
And so, there is an age discrepancy because if we start cloning people now, we won't match up to them. They'll be dead.
Yeah.
We'll recreate an entire generation of people who couldn't consent or not consent.
Then it's just like the naming thing, but worse. You know how there's a bunch of people who are a bunch of people at a certain age are named Bella, Jacob, and Edward because of the Twilight movies.
Yeah.
Imagine if a bunch of people actually just looked like Bella, Jacob, and Edward because it was this huge phenomenon, and they were like, "I want my baby to look like Robert Pattinson," and so everybody makes their baby look like Robert Pattinson.
Is this the reality? What is CRISPR for? These are options. These are wild, insane theories.
The Utopia version is CRISPR is for making human beings physically perfect, removing all diseases, and making sure there isn't any suffering.
You say that's Utopia, but we already just discussed why that's not a Utopia version in the last podcast.
The problem is, no, Utopia can't actually exist because someone's going to ruin it.
Right.
That's the actual issue.
Go watch The Good Place. They talk about this very much in depth.
Actually, yeah. But yeah, no, I think that would be... That's probably what would end up happening, though, is you would get celebrities.
You say that, but I genuinely
everybody knows
think...
the same celebrities. You would get people making their babies look like celebrities because you go in to get a haircut and you're like, I want to look like this person.
Yeah.
If you could genetically modify people to look how you wanted before they were born, you would just end up with generations of people that all have different looks based on what was popular at the time.
I truly don't believe, like, if CRISPR became something that was available to everyone in society, like every class of society, I genuinely feel like there are many people in the world who would not think first about the health and think first about the physical appearance.
Yeah, that would be
the
happen.
first thing that people think of. I mean, that's people have designer babies now.
Yeah.
I mean, they try their best, not with like science behind it, but that's like a whole thing. Actually, you know what this becomes a really big problem for, on a very, very dark tangent that we don't have to go down, but I will just touch on it very, very, very lightly right now.
Okay.
Sex trafficking. This becomes a massive issue with that kind of thing, because that could become an entire, alone on just making specific kinds of people, you can create entire new workforces essentially with designed babies.
Damn,
like,
I didn't think about that. You could, I mean, like, under the wrong control, that's like you actually literally like create like the people that are gonna be like the heavy lifters, right? You get to make the working class and design them to be better at that job.
Exactly.
That's
And then we have a whole systematic class issue of like,
you were designed.
This is a movie. I don't remember which movie it is, but like, you were designed to be a worker.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's your purpose in life, and you're designed to be a.
This definitely sounds like a young adult novel.
Actually, we did just watch that one movie that Ricky made us watch.
Which one?
Sorry to Bother You.
Oh,
or something,
yeah.
which is
that. I'm not sure that movie knew what it was.
No, it's not a good movie, and I don't specifically recommend it. But it kind of touched on, like, on that very end of that part that we hated.
Yeah.
It sort of talks about that idea, which is like genetically modifying people. Yeah, how could he? But genetically modifying people to essentially fit a goal, a societal need. And then what becomes of us? What becomes of, like, normal people? We will never be as good as anyone if they're designed to do that one thing.
We turn into the people with all the makeup from the Hunger Games, and then eventually the horse people get up and revolt, and they kill us all.
No, we don't. We lose. Oh, we turn into the people in the Hunger Games, like playing the Hunger Games. Okay, yeah, you're right, because we're the excess. Because, like, if you're up against, like, what skill do you have against someone who, like, if you had to pick your best skill, and you had to go up against designer human who was trained for that thing, could you even remotely hold your own?
No,
there's nothing that we're good enough for that someone else who is designed to do that wouldn't be better at.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, some people, yes, but only because they by chance rolled all the stats necessary to already be that. Right?
You're right, yeah, and they're terrible at everything else.
There are a few Olympic athletes that are like, okay, yeah, you may as well have been designed for that.
That's true.
Just by chance, you ended up being that kind of person.
Right.
But
well, and they work
like,
hard to get there. But and I think there's an argument to be made that even people who are normal, who have not been well, you know what? I think we have discussed this topic to its relative end. I think we've gone a lot of different directions. We did not shy away from racism like we should have, but we went there. And I think this was a successful, in-depth analysis of genetically modified humans. I'm sure there's a million different tangents that we did not even get close to. Completely skipped religion again. Is this going to be an ongoing trend that we do? But
well, I want to touch on one last thing that you were saying there at the end, which is even with all the genetic enhancements, there's an argument to be made that it's the nature versus nurture thing, right? Even if you were designed a certain way, it does come down to like how well you utilize it. So you could be born with all the genes necessary to be a super successful person, but somebody who wasn't designed that way could still surpass you just by sheer force of will.
That's true.
And just like trying hard enough to succeed that they could theoretically still bypass it. You know, right? Like there is still an element of free will to it. So there's like it definitely comes down a little bit to it's a very to use a kind of a religious term, it's a very worldly concern almost.
Absolutely.
Where it's like you get to you may make all these improvements, but then it's like you still got to put in the work.
In the new world, we're all just gray blobs.
Right.
Well, okay, so we have to wrap this up a little bit. So we'll wrap it up with the big question, Kyle.
Yep.
Would you have a crispy baby? Would you utilize the technology?
Yes, I would definitely utilize the technology. I would. I don't think I would push it so far as to make every detail of it, but I would definitely I would
even
use it.
knowing the impacts that could potentially exist of introducing the world and you become a part of it by allowing it to exist in your life.
I mean, me not using it isn't going to make other people not use it. So, but yeah, no, I think it would be just kind of an important thing to. I would personally, it would be about placing value on experience and learning and developing. Like teaching people to look past physical imperfections and learn to embrace the things that matter more.
I think from an uneducated...
Just like Buddhism.
Wow. Wow. All right. Okay. I didn't even see it coming. Let's see how many times you can surprise me with that. So from an uneducated perspective, which is the only one you and I can come from on this because we haven't lived the consequences.
Yeah.
I think that both of us would use it because we can't actually predict the end results of it being introduced. But if it got introduced in our lifetime, I mean, I had cancer growing up. My best friend had type 1 diabetes. She got diagnosed at 5. Yeah. I grew up around people dying before they were 15. Yeah. So of course I would utilize this. I have crippling anxiety and depression.
But I can't see color and that sucks. So I would probably remove that gene from whoever.
We'd probably fight because I would in no way allow the physical stuff to be touched.
I wouldn't want to. I
just
agree.
said color blindness, but I guess that's not really a physical
element. Doesn't change physical appearance.
Yeah, no, you're right. But yeah, so I think without understanding the true, result, we would both utilize that. But it's interesting, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. This was a dangerous topic, but it was fun. It was a fun and dangerous and interesting topic. I would love to hear where your mind tangent goes on this specific thing. But we had fun talking about it. We went a little bit over time, so I'm going to wrap it up. Kyle, you have any last words?
Please stop saying crispy babies.
No, that is the one last word phrase you could have not said. Anyway, thank you for listening. Enjoy your future crispy babies. We're going to leave this podcast and tune in next time for whatever the new topic is.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.